In 1943, the world was engulfed in the chaos of the Second World War. Across Europe, millions fought, suffered, and died in one of history's most brutal conflicts. Among those caught in the crossfire were thousands of German soldiers who surrendered to Allied forces. These men, known as prisoners of war, faced an uncertain future. Many believed they would be sent to harsh, grim camps where survival itself was a challenge. But instead, they found themselves on a long journey across the Atlantic Ocean, bound for a country few had ever seen, the United States of America. To these soldiers, America was a mysterious land painted in propaganda as weak, poor, and broken. What they would soon discover was a powerful industrial giant, a nation unlike anything they could have imagined, and a shock that would change their understanding of the world forever. Chapter 1. The harsh reality of capture. The early years of the war saw fierce battles from the deserts of North Africa to the snow-covered forests of Eastern Europe. German soldiers, hardened by years of combat and loyal to their cause, often fought to the last man. But by 1943, the tide had turned. The Allied forces advanced relentlessly, and countless German troops found themselves surrounded and outnumbered. As the reality sank in, many chose to surrender, hoping to live rather than die in a futile fight. Yet, surrender did not mean freedom. Instead, it marked the beginning of a new ordeal: captivity. The conditions of capture varied widely. On some fronts, prisoners were treated harshly, but many were processed and sent to prisoner of war camps. The Allies faced a logistical nightmare: how to safely house and feed hundreds of thousands of captives. Some were kept close to the front lines, but as numbers swelled, it became clear that more secure and distant locations were necessary. The United States, far from the battlefields and relatively safe, became a prime destination. Chapter 2. Crossing the Atlantic. The journey from Europe to America was long and fraught with anxiety. Packed aboard ships, often in cramped quarters, the German POWs faced days or weeks at sea. The Atlantic was still a dangerous place, with German U-boats prowling the waters and Allied ships protecting the convoys. For the prisoners, the ocean symbolized uncertainty. Would they be treated fairly? Would they survive the crossing? And what awaited them on the other side? As the ships neared the American coast, the prisoners caught their first glimpses of a world vastly different from what they had known. Towering cities with skyscrapers gleaming in the sun, bustling harbors filled with cargo cranes and ships, and endless trains and trucks moving with precision, all painted a picture of power and abundance. The contrast was stark. Where Nazi propaganda had described America as a land of hunger and decay, the prisoners now saw a vibrant, thriving nation. Chapter 3. First Impressions. The American Industrial Machine. The shock of arrival was immediate and profound. The POWs were escorted from the ports to camps located across the country. Along the way, they saw factories that never stopped working. Assembly lines stretched as far as the eye could see, producing everything from airplanes to tanks to ammunition. The scale was overwhelming. In Detroit, the heart of America's automobile industry, the prisoners witnessed the famous assembly lines that had been converted to produce war machines. Women, many of whom had never worked in factories before the war, now operated heavy machinery, welders, and assembly stations. This sight surprised many German soldiers, for it was contrary to their expectations and experiences. The Nazis have portrayed the United States as weak and incapable of true war production, but what the prisoners saw was a relentless, efficient war machine. Chapter 4. Life inside the POW camps. The POW camps themselves were unlike anything the German soldiers had imagined. Instead of brutal confinement and harsh treatment, many camps were clean, organized, and surprisingly humane. Under the Geneva Convention, the United States adhered to strict standards of care, ensuring prisoners received adequate food, shelter, and medical attention. Inside the camps, life had its own rhythm. Prisoners worked in kitchens, farms, and workshops. They played sports like football and volleyball, attended educational classes, and enjoyed music and theater performances organized within the camps. Many POWs recalled these activities as a strange mix of captivity and unexpected freedom. The camps offered a stark contrast to the battlefields they had left behind. Chapter 5: The Power of American Agriculture Beyond the Factories. The prisoners were exposed to America's incredible agricultural strength. Vast farms stretched across the landscape. Mechanized harvesters gathered crops on a scale unimaginable in war-torn Europe, and silos overflowed with grain. While Germany struggled with rationing and food shortages, America produced so much food that storage and distribution became its main challenges. The POWs were sometimes put to work on these farms, and through their labor, they experienced firsthand the abundance of the American heartland. They saw how the war effort was supported not just by factories, but by the endless fields that fed millions of people and armies alike. Chapter 6: Reflections and Transformation. When the war finally ended, the prisoners were sent back to a Germany in ruins. Cities lay in rubble, and the nation faced years of rebuilding and reckoning. Many former POWs returned changed, their minds broadened by their experiences in America. They had left believing the United States was a land of weakness, but they returned knowing it was a land of strength, opportunity, and freedom. Many recounted stories of kindness from their captors. The striking contrast between the destruction in Germany and the prosperity they had witnessed in America. This experience reshaped their worldview, and in some cases, their hopes for the future. Outrow. For the German prisoners of war, America was never just a place of captivity. It was a revelation, a shock that challenged everything they thought they knew about the world. Through their eyes, we glimpse a unique chapter of history, where enemies became witnesses to a nation's might and spirit. Their stories remind us that war is fought not only with weapons, but with ideas, industry, and humanity.